sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In.
And now, on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and with me this week is Morgan Sylvia. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We got power back on. I'm settled in, got my coffee.
We've been good. We have been fighting some technical issues to get this up and going, but perseverance, and we prevailed, and it's happening, so. So yeah, no, it's going good for a Monday. Monday's always, this is like my highlight of my day on Mondays is doing the podcast, because Mondays, for work days, usually the rough day of the week, so I have this to motivate me and look forward to every Monday to come home and record and do the podcast. So yeah, so not too bad.
Awesome.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I guess first and foremost, I am a writer. I write science fiction, horror, fantasy, poetry, and screenplays. Not in that particular order. Not in really any particular order. I'm also a full-time freelance writer, so I do write all day, every day, and then I also dabble in a little bit of metal journalism and some other stuff for a couple of clients and whatnot. So that's me. I live in Maine, the great white northern state of Maine, along with TJ. Well, not with TJ, but same state.
With an old friend of mine.
Yep. Yeah, and he actually ducked out and he went out to his workshop. For those who don't know, my boyfriend was TJ's bassist. Or if you want to flip it around, then TJ was my boyfriend's singer. They were in a band together for a long time, and I've heard many fun stories. Ace actually told me the other night, it was kind of funny, he said that he used to tuck you in at the, or something like that. Like after shows or something.
At the Salvo house. I always used to sleep on the couch, and yeah. So we'd get all done at the night, and it was like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive for me each way to go down to the band house. So when I'd go down to practice, I used to crash on the couch and would practice the night before and then would practice the next day. And so every time I go in, I'm like, I can't even remember how that started, but he'd come up and, all right, you got your blanket? You all set? All right. Thanks, Asa. Bye. Night. Yeah.
I could see him doing that. Yeah, that makes me cool.
So, yeah. Asa and I go back a long ways, so.
Yeah.
So what have, you just recently released your first novel, correct?
Yep. Abode came out in July of what year? We're in 2017. Like right after New Year's, it takes me a while to figure out what year we're currently in and what last year was. So, last summer my debut novel Abode came out from Bloodshot Books, and I was in actually a couple of anthologies last year. I was in I think the first one out was Twice Upon an Apocalypse, which is like a Lovecraft meets fairy tale type of mashup anthology. I was in Wicked Haunted, which was a collection of ghost stories that came out from the New England horror writers. And I also was in Northern Frights, which I believe you are also in.
I am.
Which is a Mainer-only collection of horror stories.
And it is on the ballot, or on the prelim ballot for one of the Stoker Award categories, correct?
Yeah, right now it's on the prelim, and I can't remember the date that they're going to release the final ballot. I think it's next week sometime.
I know personally, I'm pretty excited that we even made the ballot. So.
Yeah, we're not technically on the final ballot, but it's kind of good to even have gotten that far. Yeah,
right. To even get that far, to even be considered for the ballot, I think is a pretty big deal. So.
Absolutely, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And that was my first, non-self-released piece of work, so I was pretty excited myself to see that it come out so well, and there was a lot of great stories in that.
It really did come out well. We had David Price editing, and I think he did a great job of pulling it together. And, it kind of actually started as a happy hour thing, where my writers group does Tuesday Mayhem Society. We do basically like socials and whatnot every now and then. And we need to hit at least one up north so that some of you guys that are further up north can go. But, we just, most of the people that were there were also part of the Horror Writers of Maine, which was the group that put the book out. Or it came out as a collection of stories from the Horror Writers of Maine. And at the time, everybody that happened to be at that happy hour was in there, and we started batting around the idea of an anthology, and lo and behold, the thing grew legs and got born.
And I will say...
Got born and grew legs.
Right. And I will be honest and not kissing ass, but your story is one of my favorites in that book.
Thank you.
It's creepy as shit. And I am a horror nerd of all different types, so when I get creeped out by stuff, it usually sticks with me a lot. So that was that's a good thing. So there was Greg Dearborn had a story in there that I really, really liked. I mean, there wasn't really any I didn't like in that book, honestly. I thought it was really solid all the way through. So I was really excited. There was a lot of very interesting, different stories in that too. It wasn't just kind of the same old, type deal that you often get. A lot of surprises.
Yeah, and that was what was cool about it.
And and not to get away from you here too quick, but I definitely want to give a big shout out to David Price for doing an amazing job on that anthology. Cause
absolutely.
I know David certainly pulled the best out of me for my story with his suggestions and edits and, things that he brought forth to me and made suggestions and stuff on it. I've never really had a chance to work with a professional type editor before, so it was definitely eye opening, and it was kind of interesting to see where he made suggestions or where to trim something or add something, and it was kind of neat for me. But yeah, he did a phenomenal job on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. He's actually edited a couple of different anthologies, or been co-editor on a couple of anthologies, couple of other anthologies that I was in, and him and Scott Goudsword and Dan Keohane, which I probably just said that wrong. They do the ones from the New England Horror Writers, and they're also great to work with.
Yeah.
So definitely helps to have a good clinical point of view.
Oh, for sure, because I know as a writer, and I don't know if you run into this as much as I do, because you're definitely a little more on the professional side than me, and I do it more as a fun hobby type thing. That now, do you find it difficult to be honest and critical with your own work sometimes because you kind of fall in love with your stories, or is that having the editor? I think that's where having an editor is very important, at least for me anyway.
I want to say I don't think so, because I've been used to not having editors, so I kind of make myself be my own editor, and I try to take out anything that I see as a weak spot, or I try to address issues myself. But obviously that doesn't always work, because sometimes I'll get feedback from someone and, it's something I just totally didn't see or didn't think about. So it's always great to have, a couple sets of eyes on something. If not, feedback from other writers is also very helpful for that too.
Oh yeah, I think beta readers play a very important role in.
Absolutely.
Because if you start, if you send your manuscript out for 4 or 5 different people, and 4 out of the 5 come back with the same thing, they're probably on to something, some of the same suggestions or the same, well, I liked all of it, but this one part was really kind of didn't feel like it was, it didn't fit the rest of the story, or it felt like this part was too short, or whatever, they had. It's all, it is all suggestions. It's ultimately up to you to make that change, but I think it's valuable, especially once you find some good beta readers who aren't afraid to, tell you when something isn't good or doesn't work, too, because they're not afraid they're going to offend you.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of like the writing world version of what they do with, I think it's test screenings in the movie world, where they'll, we don't get to have usually the luxury of a room full of people, but kind of just getting feedback as to how an audience is going to perceive something. And if you've missed a spot or something, but yeah, feedback I think is crucial.
I know with my last fiction novel that I put out, Normal, it originally had a different ending. The last actual chapter of that book was something I put in after getting feedback from my beta readers, because they were all like, we like the ending, but man, they all come back with a variation of, we like the ending, but it just feels like there's something missing. So, and after about the third or fourth time I had heard that, I'm like, they're probably onto something then. So I came up with a different ending, and I sent it back out, and everybody was like, holy shit, I love that ending. I didn't see it coming. That's, wow, so I was like, cool, that was great. That made my book that much better.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting, is changing an ending as far as like how many words you're typing or whatever may not be that much. It can be as little as like a paragraph or a sentence, but it has such a huge impact on the overall story.
And in hindsight, when I went back and reread that chapter after I wrote it, and kind of how the two chapters merged, I was like, wow. I was like, I had this ending in my head for so long about how I wanted to do it, that I had gotten kind of stuck on that idea and didn't see the bigger, the bigger picture, that it could have been a little more than what and it was one of those weird situations where it just kind of happened. I didn't plan it out. I just started writing, and the first draft of what I come up with, I was like, holy crap, I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I just come up with that, and
that's a great feeling. It really is, when you're like, damn.
You get those like serendipitous moments where it's like, holy cow, Now, tell everybody a little bit about Abode and like what that's about, and the general premise behind it, and how you came about it.
Okay. Actually, I started it. I've got a couple of longer fantasy series that I was working on, and they were both like just very kind of epic things that I'd been working on for years, and just kind of got tired of working in that same place. I'd kind of come to, I wouldn't say a standstill, but kind of just was ready to work on something else. So I decided that I was going to write a horror novella. So, and I just kind of toyed with the thought of doing like a haunted house type thing. And I think I just sat down and I pretty much wrote like I can't remember if it's actually a prologue or the first chapter the way it's headed, but like the first 4 or 5 pages, just kind of off the top of my head. And it took quite a while to work on it, because I was actually, to be honest, I was kind of scaring myself as I worked on it. And I'm not a very fast writer. I write at like sloth speed. So I tend to bounce around from different things. And it actually took several years for it to become a novel. And then I answered an open call, almost 2 years ago now, actually, when I answered the call, and it came out last summer. Had a great cover by Keelan Patrick Burke. As far as the storyline itself, trying to figure out how to describe it without giving away a lot of spoilers. It's a haunted house. It is a haunted house story. It's also a generational haunted house story. So the evil entity has been around for several hundred years. So you get into a little bit of the backstory of previous residents of this house. The other, I think, the thing that I think is a little bit unique about it is that a lot of it is told in second person. It's kind of, I probably should have the elevator pitch a little bit better down than I do, but
don't worry. I'm awful at doing those myself. So writing synopsises and just rough outlines of my story in my head to pitch it without giving stuff away is like one of the worst things that I am so bad at doing that stuff. So.
It is. And it's so hard. I mean, most of the writers I know, and this goes with like different types of writing, like when you have to do that pitch or that one-liner or whatever, it's just like, just stab me in the eye with a fork instead, because it's really hard. But I guess to try and put it try and describe it without giving too much stuff away, it's written from the point of view of a guy who had survived this terrible haunting when he was a child, and when he was a child and they had moved to this house, basically it ended up destroying the family, and his little sister was killed, and he runs into this woman who he is convinced is the reincarnation of his little sister, so he starts emailing her and telling her all the stories and stuff, and as the story progresses, the hauntings start to come back, and he starts to lose his mind, and there may or may not be a Wendigo involved.
Ooh.
So, yeah. I do get told quite a bit that it bothers people. I mean, as far as, like, it actually creeps people out.
Hey, that's good.
If
you're writing a horror novel, you want to creep people out.
Yeah. It is kind of fun. I had somebody a couple weeks say that they had to read it with the lights on during the day, and I was like, really? That's kind of awesome. So
yeah, that's a good compliment.
Apparently I really like scaring people.
Hey, you know, if that's your calling, then that's your calling, you know. And,
maybe.
And it's weird because you get into conversations about horror, what is and isn't horror, what scare. The thing is, and I got into this conversation with somebody, it's like, not the same stuff bothers or scares everybody, so just because I don't consider something horror or find something scary doesn't mean it's not horror, you know. So it's it's such a broad spectrum of things that scare and frighten people, so it's kind of cool. Absolutely. When you start finding that audience that's what it's doing for them.
Right. Yeah, fear is a very powerful thing to tap into. That's part of our survival instinct, so.
Oh, for sure. That's right. I think it's one of the most primal. It's one of the most primal instincts, you know, we have is fear. And I think, you know, I get questions a lot about like, geez, why do you find these gory, sick movies or these scary books and stuff, or this like harsh, abrasive music so appealing? Because I think it does tap into those primal things. And why do you like being scared? Because it makes me know I'm alive, I guess, you know, or...
Yeah, it's like, why do people like going on roller coasters? You know, you get to experience that fear while knowing that you're safe. Well, in the event of roller coasters, I'm a little sketchy. I'm a little bit skeptical of them now. But when I was younger, I used to love them, you know?
Like that bungee cord jumping, you know?
Oh, yeah. Nope.
Nope.
I'm good.
Good with that. No,
nope.
That's okay. But
I like to actually, it's funny, like I spend a lot of time online, so I have like all sorts of little, like, you know, kind of rabbit holes that I dive into on the internet when I start getting bored with something, but I can't help but watch parkour videos. Like, they actually make like my stomach turn as if I was jumping off the building, but like, because a lot of them are shot with GoPros, so it's kind of like a POV.
Right.
But people just doing crazy stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, you just somersaulted off a 10-story building onto the next roof. I'm like, what are you thinking? But I don't know.
And that's when you need your virtual reality helmet. So you can...
Yeah. And I'm like, did these people just watch too many video games and they haven't like really made the connection that like if you fall off a 10-story building, you don't get another chance?
But it's weird, you know, parkour has actually been around for a long time.
It has.
I saw a video, it was from like the 20s or the 30s of people doing that stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's been, you know, crazy, insane daredevils for going back a long, long way.
Yeah.
You know, before that it was like, all right, Grog and Ugg are going to play Let's Poke the Saber-Toothed Tiger.
I know, right?
You know, that was like the original dumb daredevil thing to do. You know,
probably.
You just had to be faster than Ugg, you know, and you were good because, you know, at worst case they're going to catch Ugg. So
right.
So you got to have a diverse palette of you know, of what you write, and what do you have. Now, I guess before we get into that, I guess the question I wanted to ask you is, I know when I write, I generally stick to one one story at a time. I'm not one of these people that can bounce back and forth between multiple projects. Are you more of a ambi writer? Or are you...
Yeah. I guess the way I would say that is like my muse is a terrible slut with ADD. So I'm like all over the place. I might write science fiction one day, poetry the next, then delve into like a little bit of horror. I found that I always have like 5 or 6 things going on at once. And that's actually including the epic series, which I'm still actually kind of tweaking on those. I just find it more refreshing that way. And also, like, I tend to have, like, just ideas coming at me, like, all the time. And that way, like, I can kind of apply it immediately to wherever it fits the best, you know, rather than, you know, I just had this cool idea, but it's totally not going to work with the story I'm doing. I get to throw it into, chances are there's something it can fit into, or just start something else. You know, that happens too.
Yeah, I don't know if you have one, but I have a folder. It's just story ideas because I come up with too many and they're always random and they seem to come in waves. Like I'll go on droughts where I don't think of anything cool for new stories. Then all of a sudden it's just like 1 happens, then 2 happens. Then it's like, holy cow, I got to write all these down because I'm never going to remember these. But I always find that the stories, like the ideas that stick in my head are usually the ones that actually see the light of day. You know, the ones that I can't get out of my head that are just like, that's a really good, I got to work on that. You know, I did my story, The August Devils was like that. I stopped and started that story about 5 times before I finally actually wrote it. But I always kept coming back to it and it kind of evolved a little bit. But it just eventually, you know, I started it, and I think maybe 1.5 to 2 years before I actually finished writing it, because it was a novella. But, you know, it was just, it's weird. But I either have a tendency to write like a rough outline down, like how I would visualize it in the parts, and if I have it, or I'll actually write like an opening chapter or something, or a prologue, or just so I have the basic down, and then I put it away, and then if I go back to it, I go back to it, you know, type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think whatever works for you. And I guess the other thing I would say on all that is I think it's also important to upload stuff or feed your head. Like, you know, if your brain's not putting anything out, then it's time to like take things in, which means to me like watch movies, go new places, read books, read dictionaries, watch documentaries, like just kind of, you know, anything to kind of feed your head before your head's actually able to produce anything. So I'm kind of big on that, and I don't really mind those lulls. I actually sometimes kind of enjoy them. I just honestly don't have them for a while because I've got so much of a backlog. But like if I just don't feel like writing something, or, you know, then I just sit down and like watch something or read a book. I don't really worry about it, you know. Just kind of think it's just a process that sometimes you have dry spells and sometimes you have to focus more on taking things in.
Oh, absolutely. I have 2 novels that I started, and this was really the first time I had bounced back and forth writing, and I'm like, you know, I'm not too far in. I'm like 10,000-15,000 words into them, but I haven't gone back to those in like 6-7 months, because I just hit a dry spell wall where I just was like, I know where I want to go and what I want to do, but it's just not coming out. So
right.
Eventually I need to get back to those, I'm hoping, because I really like both stories. So, but you never know.
Yeah.
Writing's...
And I probably I probably shouldn't be like too much of an advocate for having like as many things working you're doing at the time, because I mean honestly, like I release things at a very slow rate usually. Like, well, I can't even say that because like really Abode's the first novel that I've got out, but whatever works for you, you know, it's whatever keeps you interested and keeps you moving forward.
I had stopped writing, and I've mentioned this on the show for the loyal listeners who are tuning in. I have mentioned this before, but you know, I stopped writing for a really long time. Like I actually wrote most of a full book when I was in high school, and back when we had the 3.5-inch floppy drives. And
yeah, I've got a shoebox full of those.
Yeah, me too. And I have that story somewhere, But I'm missing, like, the middle section of it because the disc got corrupted and I lost it and I didn't have it on anything else. So I never finished it, and I took some creative writing classes, like, through, like, adult education creative writing classes and stuff like that, after I got out of high school, and my teachers always said, you know, I was really good, and then I just started I got into music, and I just kind of got away from writing for a long time. Not like story writing. I still wrote lyrics and stuff like that, but as far as regular writing goes, so when I kind of retired from music a few years back, you know, that's when I really was like, I need to do something creative because my brain is just like, I think you're probably the same way. I'm one of those people, like, I have to do something creative.
Absolutely. It's like, yeah, I couldn't not do something.
I don't feel right when I'm not doing something creative, so I got back into writing. So I kind of feel like in a lot of ways I'm I'm further behind than a lot of the other writers we're friends with, or I don't see myself as, and this isn't like a sympathy thing that I'm asking for sympathy or anything like that, but I don't see myself on the same level as a lot of the writers we're friends with when I read their stuff. It's just like, wow, I suck, you know, but it's given me, helped motivate me in a lot of ways to improve and try to get better. And I feel like I'm finally getting to that point where I'm comfortable enough to actually start submitting things to anthologies and magazines and different stuff. I've already sent out 4 things this year. I've only ever sent out in the total since I started writing again 3. So
that's actually a lot. And I mean, I think this, you know, writing has a really kind of a long learning curve, but I think honestly, like, it comes to, I don't know, I mean, I guess everybody's different, but like to some people, I think they kind of hit their stride a little bit later in life. That's one good thing about this industry is, like, you don't really have to worry about how old you are when you start putting things out.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like you're gonna, you know, if you keep at it for 5 or 10 years, then you're still a pretty young guy, and, you know, that's honestly a lot of the age of a lot of people in the industry. So I would just say keep at it. I mean, there's kind of a lot of, you kind of got to just, I think, get some word mileage under you, you know, like anything, you just, you know, got to do it and get the experience and kind of start to develop writer, and I can't think of the right word, instinct for what you're doing.
Yeah, and I've gotten better about knowing what I should cut out, you know, even before I write it. Especially, like, when, I guess, advice for young writers out there is you are going to put a lot of fluff in that doesn't need to be in your stories when you first start writing. I still do it now, you know, and I've put out 6 novels, or, well, 4 novels and short story collections and count. You know, and I'm sure, like you've written a ton of stuff, whether you've even released it or not. But it's one of those things. It's a trial and error thing. It's like anything. I just feel like it's weird for me because I kind of restarted so late, and but my whole point, I got wicked sidetracked, and unfortunately that happens on this. But my whole point was, when I started writing, I tried to write for an hour or 2 every day is what I tried to do. And I found myself, I got a lot of work out, but I also got very burned out doing it that way, on top of working my regular job, you know, and having all this other stuff going on. So creatively it was great because I was putting out output, but I'm not 100% sure it benefited the writing itself as far as quality of my writing. Because it was more of an accuracy by volume type thing, I guess.
Right. I mean, it was probably good for you to just get that done. But I think there's kind of a fine line between trying to force something and just, you know, doing the work. Like, you know, I feel like with the arts that can get kind of tricky because it's like you got to put the work in, but you also don't want to make it to where, like, it's something that you have to do this. Like, I turned it
into a war of attrition against my stories. Like, I will beat you and I will finish you, and I'm gonna, because my first whole thing was when I wrote The Returners, was I just wanted to prove to myself I could finish writing a book. That's all I wanted to do. And I really had no plans on keeping going once I got that done. But then
and that's a huge accomplishment.
And I was like, wow, I actually forgot how much I enjoy writing. So it kind of, me just forcing myself to write that first book and forcing my way to get it done, and it kind of rekindled the fire and kept it going. Have you ever had any of those moments where you're like, I just need to just push through and keep going, or is it just one of those things that you've always naturally just had the aptitude to do and the drive to do?
Yeah, and I've kind of realized that, I guess a couple of things, like, if I'm really like forced to hit a certain part in the story, then I'm kind of like, maybe this isn't just working because it should be kind of fun to go there. Or, even if you're writing like something that's really dark, maybe fun wouldn't be the word, but, I also, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes, like I said, sometimes I just don't feel like doing it, and I don't really force myself. I just focus on, like I said, looking at art, watching stuff, reading stuff.
Yeah.
To try to, like, I feel like you got to feed your head, like Grace Slick said. So, unless I'm on a deadline, but I'm actually kind of lucky in that I worked at a newspaper for so long that I'm kind of deadline trained. So if I have like a deadline, then I'm like everything like. All my little engine lights are firing, and I'm just like, so.
Need to get this done, make it happen.
Yeah.
Now, this is another question I always like to ask other writers, is do you specifically make playlists for each book or piece that you're working on? Musical playlists.
Pretty much. Yep, and they're all over the place. It doesn't even depend on what I like. It's just what fits the scene. I try to do at least one song per chapter, or maybe a couple songs by the same artist or something if they're fitting. But yeah, absolutely.
I know personally, if any of you out there use Spotify, if you look my name up on Spotify, you can click on and add me. And I have playlists for like most of my books and short novellas and stuff I've written. I have specific playlists up for those. So if you're curious what I was listening to that was like in my head when I was writing, that's where they are. Because I'll do the same thing, but I'll pick, all right, well, I know this is going to be kind of an up and down. There's going to be a little romance, little action, so I want a variety. Or this is just supposed to be like fast paced and brutal, so it's going to be like all death metal and heavy stuff. Or,
right.
It really depends on the story, like you said. And I like pretty much everything from music. So, as I've often said, everything from Cannibal Corpse to Mozart, it's whatever.
Right, whatever fits the story.
I might have a little Run DMC in there, and a little, Hank Williams Jr., and a little, like pop, a little whatever, whatever. Whatever happens to. Fit the story. Like, I have one that's weird. It's like disco and metal mixed together because it fits the story,
Okay.
It's a weird story.
I know what you're saying, though. Yeah, mine are pretty all over the place, too, so.
I tried to tie, like, specific songs and styles to, like, certain groups of characters in the piece of work, so it's, that's why it's a little all over the place, but it's, you kind of got your carefree, and then you've got your more serious characters, so I wanted those two types of music, because those two personalities clash, so you got the clashing styles of music,
Yep. Definitely.
I think it's always fun when you're one of the fun things for me is when I'm getting ready to write, especially novels. I don't do it so much with short stories, but I just have some like go-to. Yeah. I have some go-to playlists that I'll throw on for those. But when I'm writing a novel, it's always fun for me to like sit there and kind of pick my playlist and be like, all right, this is what I want here. And then as I go, I'll be like, this would fit here, so I'm going to throw this song on and add to it. So it starts out as like 20 songs, and by the end there's like 60.
Yep, been there. And I've actually, like, with a lot of my stuff, I've been through several different computers, and I still, like, usually keep playlists on my computer. So, like, I've changed playlists just because I don't,
have it anymore.
Always go back, set everything up again when I change computers. I just kind of start fresh with a lot of stuff. So there's that, too. But yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I write with nothing, but that's actually, really, I think more when I'm doing like nonfiction where I don't have like it's not that it's not creative, but it's much drier, so I don't have to worry about, being as inspired or whatnot. It's more like just work.
Yeah, occasionally, like, I always usually keep a notebook beside my bed because ideas pop into my head at random times sometimes. And that's one of those rare times where I'll write stuff down and not really have something playing. Even if I'm writing a movie review for the podcast, I usually have music playing in the background, so.
I do the same thing, and it's funny because I've had a couple times where I've, like, had a dream that has actually been, like, I've woken up and been like, wow, that'd be really cool, I gotta write that down. So I'd be half asleep and I'd scribble something down, this great idea. And then I wake up the next morning, look at it, cannot make out a single thing that I said. It's just, like, all gibberish, like hieroglyphics or something. So I'm like, great, I don't know, like, what story ideas I maybe could have used, but, because then by then the dream's forgotten, so I have no idea.
I have a sci-fi story that I swear I'm gonna write one of these days. That came from a dream, and it is the most all over the place weird. I mean, it's got time travel and cyborgs and aliens and cannibals and frozen time portal things, and it's such a weird. But it was all from the dream, and I woke up and it was like. It wasn't like a cohesive dream where it flowed together. It was bits and pieces that I remembered, so I wrote those bits and pieces down. And I have it in a folder all ready to go, so if I can figure out how to make this, like, come together and work, I think it will be pretty cool, but...
That does sound pretty cool.
But
But how would...
What?
And I'm like, that actually kind of made me wonder, like, how would a cyborg be a cannibal? Because that could actually get kind of interesting. Like, I'm going to take your mechanical arm and attach it to my forehead. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. It could be interesting. It was an odd story. The thing was, I definitely would have to change characters because most of the people in the dream were like friends. So I couldn't really have them in there. That would be kind of weird. I mean, real names and such, As writers, we often put people we know in whether they realize it or not. So don't ever piss a writer off, is the old saying, or they will kill you in their novel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've definitely sent some people through some very brutal endings.
So you...
Our secret power.
So you're a big music person, and you also write for a magazine? Or is it?
Yep, Antichrist Magazine. They are based out of Ukraine. Check it out. I don't do as much as I would like to just because of time. I try to do about one a month, but it just kind of varies. But yeah, I enjoy it, But it's like I said, it's something that I more dabble in. I don't have really as much time to do that as I would like, because then it will take away from my fiction, which I'm like very guarded about. So
no, I completely understand that. Free time is such a commodity, I guess. Unless you're writing full time, and like writing fiction full time is your job. If you're Stephen King, you can write 5 hours a day. You have that luxury. That's why he puts out 4 books a year, because the man is
absolutely
he writes 4 hours a day every day, or whatever it is he writes. I know he writes a lot.
Yeah.
And
most of the rest of us are, working our stuff around some form of, around work.
Oh, yeah. The 8 hours a day of work and the commute doesn't leave me a lot of free time. Plus, I have the podcast going on. And I decided when I first really started writing that, while I want people to be able to read my stuff and get it out there, I've kind of come to the, because of varying levels of success with it, it's kind of come to the point of where I'm like, I'm going to do this for fun, and if something happens with it, awesome. If not, I'm not going to worry about it, because I can always self-publish like I've been doing, and, but I'm getting to the point now where I'm actually, like, getting like I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of getting daring enough, like I feel like my stuff is quality enough that I can send it out to people. So I think my next novel, I'm actually going to take a shot and see if I can, get a publisher to pick it up. And I'm terrified of dealing with that whole gauntlet of contracts and not signing my life away.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, like, I kind of think that life is about just growing and changing and, you know, always trying to be better. And if it's something you enjoy, that's kind of the beauty of it. If it's something that you enjoy doing, then, like, the learning part isn't as hard because you're, you know, because it's, you know, something you love to do. So I say, yeah, keep at it, keep going, and, you know, go for it.
Oh, for sure. That's, you know, in a lot of ways it's been nice because I've taken pressure off myself and I'm writing what I feel like I need to write because I don't feel like I need to just keep putting stuff out for the sake of putting it out, kind of, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I almost feel like if you're not getting enough stuff out, people are going to forget about you. But at the same time, I feel like maybe if you're doing it at the expense of quality, maybe you should dial it back a little. And that's how I feel about my own writing. Like, I felt like I needed to dial it back a little bit in order to put out a better product because of not forcing it so much.
Right, I agree. And speaking of music, I feel like that probably happens a lot in the music world where bands get contracts and they have this great first album and maybe a great first 2 albums, and then all of a sudden they're under this deadline for the next album, and, you know, they're tired and the juices maybe aren't flowing creatively, and that's why I think you sort of get that slump with some bands. I don't think it's really that the bands, I think it's just, you know, they're up against deadlines and they're not really, you know, they're having to sacrifice quality just to put something out.
I think, you know, I think the old saying goes, you have your whole life to write your first album. You have a year to write your second album, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So, it's you know, it's like anything, music, writing anything, you really... The excitement of getting that contract and knowing that somebody actually has faith in your work and wants to put it out is so overwhelming that sometimes you don't think with a clear head. That's where, unfortunately, nothing against anybody that's a lawyer that's listening, but that's where lawyers come in handy because they're the people that are going to keep you from getting screwed.
Yeah, and I actually, it's interesting that you say that. I actually just turned down a contract the other day, because it was just full of pitfalls and red flags, and, you know, I'm just, nope, not gonna do that, so sorry. You know, it would have been great to have the book come out, you know, quickly, but, just gonna keep looking for a better home for it.
And I think that's one cool thing about the writing community that we're involved. We're communities, really, because it's more than one.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really more like a wacky, dysfunctional family of awesome, crazy, creative people.
I have it, you know, it kind of reminds me of, like, the music scene and bands, and I hate to always tie it back into that, but it's very similar. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody kind of...
No, you're right.
Everybody kind of looks out for each other, and, you know, even if you're not sure, you can often say, hey, I got this contract for this project, but I'm not sure. Would one of you that's a little more familiar, you know, could you maybe take a look at this and tell me whether this sucks or not? Or am I going to get screwed? Or is it a good entry-level thing? And there's so many awesome people that are willing to help out on that sort of thing, you know?
Definitely, and that's something where you really have to be careful because a lot of publishers will kind of prey on people and, you know, offer this horrible deal, and people are just so happy to get their book published that they don't realize that they're really screwing themselves over, and in some cases getting into situations that would take years and years and years and just are very hard to get back out of once you've signed that dotted, or I don't even know if the line's dotted anymore, but yeah, so any newbie writers out here, be very careful with what you sign for contracts.
And the thing is you have to look beyond just the book. You don't want to sign away all your mechanical rights, because if they get offered a movie deal and you have signed all that stuff away, you're not going to get shit from that. So, you know...
Exactly. You'll be lucky if you get your name on the movie at that point.
Oh, yeah. You need to have a clause or something. You know, not that I'm an expert on contracts, but I have looked at a few, you know, whether it be for music or whatever, that, you know, you want to make sure that your personal interest is protected. It's as great as it is to get it out. It's not great to get it out there at the expense of your your name and your livelihood, because if you don't have any say in anything that's going on, they can do whatever the hell they want with it.
Absolutely, yeah. This industry, and I feel like the arts are full of these situations. You just have to be really careful of, people that basically take advantage of other people in, various ways. But yeah, contracts can definitely be a pitfall. They can be a good thing. And yeah, I always usually have somebody look over mine. But so far, yeah, I've actually escaped a couple of bad contracts, and I had no issue with walking away. I'm just like, nope, no.
Yeah, and that's definitely a good thing. And, so be a George Lucas and have the foresight to get your merchandising right and make your twice as much off toys and everything else as you did off your actual movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Didn't he keep the merchandising right? He ended up in a much better situation.
He took less on his overall whatever he got from the film, as long as he could keep the merchandising rights. And I believe Kenner put him out. They were like, whatever. That's probably at the time, especially at that time, the toy craze for movies and stuff wasn't that big of a deal. But he had the foresight to realize this could be huge. So, there's a great series on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. And there's a whole thing about Star Wars toys on there, and it's fascinating. So, and they talk about that. But the Star Wars toys have either made double or triple what the films have grossed.
Wow.
So you're talking...
And those films made a lot of money, so
billions
that's really
of dollars. I mean, you're talking billions and billions of dollars. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is Average Joe's Drive-In, and we do like to talk movies. So, what's some recent films you've checked out that you liked? Anything from last year that really kind of blew you away?
Let me think. I really loved A Dark Song, which it seems like a lot of the movies that I really like are the ones that people either love or hate. And I know that's kind of definitely right in there. I just love that movie.
What was that one about? I don't know if I know anything about that one.
It was kind of weird. It was this chick whose her child had died. She hired some basically sorcerer type guy to help her do this. I think it was a 6-month-long ritual that would allow her to talk to her child and summon an angel.
I know what movie you're talking about now. I remember seeing it.
It's really weird. I thought that was fascinating.
I haven't seen it, but I saw it on Netflix, and I kind of hovered over it a bunch of times, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to pull the trigger or not on this one. I'm really weird.
I loved it. Mileage may vary, because like I said, I kind of have weird taste sometimes, and I tend to love movies that everybody hates.
Hey, you're talking to the guy that enjoys the Sharknado movies, so...
I've never seen those yet. I think I'm waiting until 10 of them, and then I'm just gonna, during a snowstorm, maybe I'll try and see how many I can get through.
They are awful, but they are also fun awful. Except for the last one, I made it 15 minutes in and I had to shut it off because it was so bad. But they're those type of movies, they're bad and they make fun of themselves, and that's kind of what's fun, but they're at the point now where they're 5 or 6 movies in and they're getting really stale.
Right, yeah. It's you can only do so much with sharks and tornadoes.
Yeah. But yeah, that movie was one, like I said, I had it on my Netflix queue, and I just never quite pulled the trigger.
Okay, I'm trying to think what else. I actually have to say I did really like the remake of Ghost in the Shell, even though I know that was kind of one of those controversial films.
I just watched that last night.
I thought it was well done. Yeah. And it had come out a while ago, so I kind of forgot, and then, but anyway, I liked that a lot. What else? I'm trying to think.
I will be giving my review on Ghost in the Shell on Thursday's review episode, so I'm not going to talk about it right now, because I think our opinions probably differ quite a bit on that one, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I liked it, but it also kind of like, I'm also very, I tend to look for movies based on like certain genres which are kind of like based on my mood.
Right, yeah.
And like, so, there was that. I watched, I think it was called The Devil's Candy. It was about a painter. That was pretty good.
That's also on my queue because everybody has told me I need to see that movie. They were like, it's got Ethan Embry in it, and they were like,
yeah, it was well done.
Yeah, they were like, I think you would really dig that. It would be. Now, did you see the movie Deathgasm?
Yeah, I did, and I don't remember all that much about it. I thought it was pretty good. As far as metal movies, I thought Metalhead was really good. Did you see that one yet? It's set in Iceland.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
That one was really good. Yeah, Deathgasm, I thought it was pretty good, but not like, oh my god, this is the best movie ever.
I watched it once and I was like, I don't know, like I don't hate it, but I'm not sure I'm in love with it like a lot of my friends were that saw it, kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know if it could have, honestly, like anything, my mood affects how much I enjoy films sometimes, because sometimes I just want something cheesy and kind of, silly or whatever. I don't want something serious, and if I watch a serious movie, I'm liable to not like it as much, or, it happens. And I don't know if I was in that right frame of mind for that movie when I watched it. Because it is kind of weird. It's different, but...
I thought Life was pretty good. Not amazingly good, but pretty good. I just recently, we watched the new Alien Covenant, I think it was called. Pretty good.
I like, I want to get your opinion on this, because this one I will talk about because I've reviewed this already on the show. I liked the first 2/3 of the movie. I hated the ending with the fire of 1,000 burning suns. I just did not like the direction they went with the ending and David and that whole thing. I just was like, really? Come on.
Yeah, I think I kind of have to agree, and I'm actually, I've kind of forgotten a lot of it already, but,
I just thought it was telegraphed.
I remember thinking it was good, but somehow it sort of lost some of the feel of the earlier movies somehow. I couldn't even really put my finger on whether it was the David thing. So yeah, I wouldn't say it sucked by any means.
No, it definitely didn't suck. I probably, if the ending had been better, I probably would have given it maybe like a 7 out of 10. I think I gave it like a 5 out of 10 because I hated the ending so bad. I was just like, oh, come on, really? And the thing is, like, I saw that coming way, way ahead of time. It wasn't even, you're like not even trying to, like, disguise this. This is just so blatantly obvious.
Yeah, I have to agree. One of the ones, this is actually going back a little bit, but one of the ones I really loved within the last couple of years was As Above, So Below.
Also one I have not seen.
Love that movie.
What's that one about?
It delves into the catacombs below Paris, which is like another thing that I'm like utterly fascinated by.
Yeah, that shit's horrifying.
Yeah.
There was an episode of Ghost Adventures they did there, if I remember right, that was like creepy as all shit.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's just crazy. Like there was this one, I guess they literally found footage of somebody that was down there, and it was this guy that had wandered like pretty far down because they could tell from the footage like where he was, and he was like in there like pretty far down. And on the footage, like you can tell he's starting to get scared, and he starts suddenly like running, and then he drops the camera, which had his only light on it, what you can tell, and just kept like running into the darkness. So who knows if he ever got out or not? But yeah, I find that whole thing, like I find like catacombs and tunnels, like I have a fascination for that, like morbid curiosity.
So you must be a big fan of the movie The Descent.
Oh my god, yes, I love that
movie. That movie
One
is
of my
so
favorites.
creepy.
I know. It freaked me out. Like, but like every time, like if I'm passing, even if it's on just regular TV or whatnot, I cannot pass by it. I'm like, oh yes, because I love how like the women in the movie at the beginning, they're just like, you know, kind of normal, kind of athletic chicks, and like they so quickly descend into like these primal, like, you know, kind of savages almost. In that situation. So it's like a really interesting character arc for me to watch, and just like the thought of like those creepy things.
And I thought it was cool for the simple, you know, for a simple fact of you don't get a lot of horror movies that has like an all-female cast.
This is true too. That was another thing I thought was, you know, unique about it, and it just worked really well for the story. Like I think if you'd thrown a guy into that mix, it wouldn't have had, I don't know, I don't feel like it would have worked as well for some reason.
It's one of those things, and this is something that I think is kind of cool about a lot of the newer movies and stuff that are coming out, is you are starting to see a little bit more of a diverse influx of, you know, gender and, you know, races and stuff like that. You know, you're starting to see people in films that maybe, or prominent roles in films that maybe wouldn't have had that voice in a film in previous years. I haven't watched it yet. I bought it last week, and I've been dying to see Get Out. I haven't
seen that one yet. It's on my queue, and it's probably one of the ones I'm going to watch shortly.
Yeah,
soon. I almost said soon.
That's probably what I'm going to watch tonight once I get all done editing this and I get ready to sit down for dinner. I think so. But it's like, that's weird. It's like I want to see it so bad, but I'm like, I really feel like I need to be in the right mindset to watch this, because while I know a little bit about it, I don't know enough about it to kind of ruin it for me, but I know it's kind of really messed up. So,
right.
But so what? Off track. Sorry, it happens to ramble. But I wanted to ask, you know, do you think overall it seems, especially in the last 5 or 6 years with horror and even sci-fi, you know, as a female author, do you think that is a good thing, or do you think it's going to create some sort of a weird backlash amongst people as far as like you're only doing it because of this to be trendy, or is it just you think it's finally time that other people are getting to be able to get their voice out, you know, and to everybody?
I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think, honestly, I think demographics are changing, and that probably has a lot to do with it. It's not, you know, like white people are not like the vast majority anymore, and it's time for other people to kind of step up and, you know, celebrate their art, you know. As far as me being a woman in the horror field, I don't know how it's affected me. I haven't really seen, I don't know. I think it's just great to hear, you know, no matter what art you're in or what you're doing, it's just good to see and hear creations and characters from all walks of life. We don't live in an echo chamber or a bubble. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, barriers are breaking down, and it's, you know, it can be a beautiful thing.
It's creating some very cool content, because you're hearing voices that you've never really been exposed to before, and I think that's an awesome thing, because you're getting stories from a different perspective. Because right, I think with horror particularly has pretty much always been the boys' club, you know, at least is how I've always seen it. You know, when I think of horror writers, other than maybe Anne Rice, I mostly think of, you know, Stephen King or Rick Atala or, you know, Brian Keene or Jack Ketchum, who just passed away, or Richard Lehman, or people like that. You know, I don't necessarily think of female writers. It's not because I don't think they put out quality content. It's just I haven't read or seen as much content from them. So it's cool to now, it almost seems like a 50-50 split, honestly, from what I'm seeing now when it comes to, like, horror writers, especially, like, the horror writing groups we're in. It seems pretty split as far as male to female ratios.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as, like, going back traditionally, I think what happened was, like, women were kind of in the next room over, writing a lot of, like, paranormal ghost stories and things like that. And, like, you know, we just recently, you know, with, like, Anne Rice and, wow, I'm blanking out, but, it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, where things go and just be able to, I think also accessibility is another thing. Like, I think it's more accessible to get, different voices and art that's made from different people. As, you know, like I said, as things are changing and the world is changing and, you know, there's a lot of, like, getting pieces and voices to be, you know, to be found. So, yeah.
So where can we're getting to that time. Like I said, it goes by quick. We're getting to that time where we're going to have to start kind of wrapping things up. But where can people find your stuff online or follow you?
Well, I have an Amazon page, which is under Morgan Sylvia. I have a Twitter, which is under Morgan Sylvia 11. I have a WordPress site. Honestly, if you just were to Google Morgan Sylvia, a lot of it would come up. You can also find me on Antichrist, and I'm on Facebook. So, and I am on Instagram, and I'm on Pinterest. So I think I've covered, like, I don't know, there's so many social media sites now that I'm just like, okay, I know, I'm sure I'm missing like 10 of like the ones that are most relevant to, you know, the younger generation, but yeah, I'm just mostly in the main places, but yeah.
You can follow her on Grindr.
As far as writing. Yeah, I know, right?
Whatever, you know, just random dating sites, whatever you're going to find. Yeah. I'll try to make...
I'm on page 3 of your phone book.
What's a phone book? No, I will...
We actually still have one.
I got one this year, and it's like the size of like 3 pieces of paper. It's very tiny. I will make sure I will throw some links up for those of you listening in the show description, so you can go buy Abode, because it will kick your ass and you will enjoy it, and do it because I said so and you love me, and you will have a great new author that you will want to follow and keep up with and check out everything she releases. So once again, I want to thank my sponsors, the Maine Cannababes, for being just a bunch of really badass ladies doing some very cool things. Their website is down right now for, I think, until the 1st of February, because they are working on a bunch of stuff and upgrading. And but when you get a chance, go to maincannababes.com. You can check out all the cool resources, see all the different events they're doing. They are doing some casting calls for those of you who might be interested in working with the Maine Cannababes and doing some volunteer work, modeling, whatever. I also encourage you all to rate the show if you enjoy Average Joe's Drive-In. Most podcast apps, you can go on and rate the show. That is such a huge, huge help in spreading the word and getting people to check it out, because it brings the show up in the ratings.
Absolutely.
If you want to follow me online, go to TWJ Author at Twitter, Thomas Washburn Jr. at Instagram, Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast at Facebook, ThomasWashburnJr.com. Or if you really want to support the show and myself, go to Amazon and type in Thomas Washburn Jr. My books will come up. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. If you are a Prime member, I am part of Kindle Unlimited, and I have all my stuff through Amazon. You can read so many books a month for free if you have an Amazon Prime account. So it doesn't cost you anything, but if you read my book, I get paid. So, win-win. It doesn't cost you anything, I get paid. Therefore, I can keep upgrading the show and doing cool things and, you know, spreading the word. So I want to thank you, Morgan, very much for coming on, and I'm glad we got all the technical issues worked out.
Thank you so much for having me. I had fun. And as you said, this actually, really flew by. I'm already what, we're done?
Yeah, it's that time. I get on to the editing part and that fun stuff. And,
okay.
Tell Asa I said hello. And tell them we need to, all get together and catch up here sometime. And
absolutely, yeah. We've said that several times. We tend to hermit during the winter, but
hermit all the time. So it's just,
yeah, those crazy Mainers.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Average Joe's Drive-In. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and I will see you sexy animals on the flip side.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.